School in Jackson, the Chesterton Academy of St. George, headmaster Matthew Anderson. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Bart. Nice to be here.
Yeah, new to Jackson, the school, but you've actually been here for a while.
Yes, my family and I moved here 8 years ago to be close to my wife's family who lives down in Onstead. And we've been deeply involved in the community ever since and love it here in Jackson.
So you're introducing a brand new school to Jackson.
Yep.
With a long name, Chesterton Academy of St. George.
Yeah, a little bit of a mouthful.
Yeah. This is a school that actually started somewhere else, and this is a new campus of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so the original school started in 2008 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And the second school started in 2014, and since then they've exploded across the country. We're one of 15 schools looking to open up next year, and there's another 17 that'll be opening up in fall of 2023.
All right, what kind of a school is it?
So it's a classical high school. Classical education focuses on the great thinkers of Western civilization like Aristotle, Plato, St. Thomas Aquinas. And so it's teaching young people by putting them into kind of the greatest minds that history has ever seen.
So by being named Chesterton, is that after G.K. Chesterton?
It is, yes. It's named after G.K. Chesterton, the early 20th century English author and writer. And the reason the original school chose that name was because they really wanted their students to be like G.K. Chesterton. Chesterton was a man of great joy, of great humor, and he was a man who was able to really get along with his enemies, which is something that we need in our world, our divisive world today. You know, Chesterton's enemies were always his friends as well, and they would personally spend time together, even if they disagreed on some of the most important issues.
Yeah, they were like other authors, like Oscar Wilde, I think, was one of his contemporaries who he disagreed with but hung out with.
Mm-hmm, exactly, right? And probably Bernard Shaw is the most famous. Bernard Shaw was an avid atheist. Chesterton was a Catholic. And yet, Bernard Shaw once said, if I have any chance of getting into heaven, it's because I'm a friend of G.K. Chesterton's. So that's what we want our students to be like, to be people who can live in the world, hold fast to their truths, hold fast to their ideas, and yet still be friends with people.
So there's G.K.
There he is.
Kind of stern. People are probably more familiar with his Father Brown short stories.
That's his most famous work, is the Father Brown short stories. And he loved detective stories because he really saw detective stories as kind of a paradigm of life, of discovering the mystery, of discovering the wonder in the world around us.
All right, you say classical school, so is this going to be Latin and the masters and the British literature? I mean, is it going to be heavy like that?
Yes, exactly. Yep. So all students will take Latin for at least the first 2 years of high school. All students will take art for all 4 years. By the time students are done at a Chesterton Academy, they're doing oil paintings. All students take music, drama. These are all classes that are kind of unique to the classical education model. And the idea is to show students the beauty of the world around them and the beauty of the world that God has created.
So oil painting, that's a mandatory, every kid's going to do oil painting whether they have talents or not.
Exactly, and but what's wonderful is it provides an opportunity for students to discover talents that they didn't know about. You know, there's a story out of the original Chesterton Academy that one of their best oil painters of all time was also the captain of their basketball team. And normally those are two things that we don't think of going together, right? The captain of a sports team and the best painter. But because Chesterton Academies have students do everything, oftentimes they discover talents that they never knew they had.
So it's Catholic school?
It's in the Catholic tradition,
okay.
Yes. So we're not associated with the Diocese of Lansing, but it's Catholic in spirituality.
Okay, so like Lumen Christi, as an example, that's part of the Catholic Diocese of Lansing school system. So you won't be part of that?
No, the Chesterton Schools Network itself is what's called an apostolate of the lay faithful. So we are associated with the broader national network instead of being associated with any kind of local diocese or organization.
I'm guessing that my next question is going to be the number one question you've had,
Yeah.
and that is, well, we already have a Catholic high school in Jackson. Why bring this to Jackson?
Yeah, and Lumen Christi is a wonderful school. I taught there for a number of years, and they do an amazing job. This is just a different type of education. Classical education is a different model. It focuses on kind of different skill sets, especially skill sets of speaking, listening, like I said earlier, observation. And so when we were looking at the Jackson area, there's not a classical high school in the entire Jackson County. There's one starting up in Ann Arbor next year. St. Thomas is expanding into a classical high school. And so this was something we wanted to come and provide to the to the Jackson community that we felt isn't here yet.
So you've had some coffee hours and conversations with members of the community. What's been the reaction so far? Are you signing up students already?
Yep. So we are enrolling students for the fall. We have an open house coming up this Thursday, actually, at our location at Bethany House in Jackson, and we've received a lot of excitement so far. There's a lot of parents, especially homeschooling parents or parents of students in the public schools, couple in the Catholic schools, who are excited for us to be bringing this new type of education to Jackson.
Now, Tom Monahan, who is also, I would consider a classical Catholic, lived at what was previously your high school.
That's right.
When it was St. Joseph's Orphanage.
That's right. That's right. And so, and Tom Monahan has done amazing things for Catholic education. You know, bringing that, especially that strong liberal arts foundation to Ave Maria University.
So Lepanto, am I saying that right? Lepanto Days.
Yes, Lepanto Days. So this is a mini camp that we're holding in July, from July 12th through the 14th. And it's basically going to focus on the Battle of Lepanto, which is the battle in Christian history that really made the Rosary popular throughout the world. And so it'll be a great opportunity for the kids to learn the great adventure of that battle.
How many grade levels are you going to have in your first year?
We're going to start with 9th and 10th grade, but both grades are actually going to do the freshman curriculum. The curriculum at Chesterton Academy is a story that starts freshman year and goes all the way to senior year, and it follows the course of history. So freshman year, they all study the ancient world. They all study from the beginning of time until about the time of Christ. They do that in literature class, in history class, in math class. They study Euclid and Euclid's elements. In science class, they study astronomy. And so all of our students will start on the freshman curriculum.
And the students that say, oh man, this sounds like it's really going to be way over my head, that's got, I don't know, it's going to be tough. Is it a tougher, as far as the curriculum and the course of study, is it a tougher challenge for students?
Well, you know, it's amazing because the reason that the classical works of literature are classics is because they appeal to everybody at all times. And so high schoolers can do these. That's one of the wonderful things about working with the network, is that we get to draw on their expertise, and they have been doing this for close to 15 years now. And so they know how to teach these works to high schoolers. And the way we teach is through the Socratic method. And so we ask questions of them and really try to get them to connect these classical works to their own personal lives. So for instance, when we talk about, when we read the book, The Odyssey, we talk a lot about family and what does it mean to be a child? What does it mean to be a brother, a sister? What does family look like?
So Matt, is this going to look like a traditional school, a classroom? So we, instead of a principal, we have a headmaster. So that's a new term to people in the community. So will the classrooms, the teacher, the desks, all of that, will it resemble a traditional?
In some ways, yes. In other ways, it'll look very, very different. You know, for instance, because we run our classes through a Socratic seminar, oftentimes what happens is instead of a teacher being kind of up in front of the class and students in individual desks, we arrange our desks in circles, right, or in squares, and the teacher sits down with the students so that they're at the same level of the students. And really, the teachers are taught not to answer every question, to sometimes allow students questions to kind of percolate so that they can think about it and come back the next day and talk more.
Earlier it said the best painter in the oil painting class was also the star basketball player. So you're going to have a basketball team?
We're going to have whatever sports our students are interested in. You know, a lot of times sports at a Chesterton Academy are really student driven. And it provides for some really unique sports. There's a Chesterton Academy in Illinois that has rugby. There's a Chesterton Academy up in Petoskey that has a ski team in the winter. And that's because that's what those students were interested in. So we don't have any set sports where we say this is what we're going to have. We're going to kind of allow the students to come in and drive that.
Yeah, I have relatives in Petoskey, so I'm familiar with Chesterton Academy of St. George in Petoskey. And that's been there for, what, about a dozen years?
Yes, it started out as St. Michael's Academy, and then a few years ago they switched and became a Chesterton Academy. So, yeah, that one has been around for a while.
Is it tuition-based?
Yes, it is. It is. It's tuition-based, but tuition doesn't cover the cost. So we do a lot of fundraising to cover the cost in between what families pay and what the cost is actually for a student.
How many students are you anticipating in a typical classroom?
We would eventually like to grow the student population to where we have 15 to 20 students in a grade level. We want to keep the school small. We feel that that's important for the school community. The first couple of years will probably be smaller than that. We're anticipating 6 to 8 students probably to start next year.
The building that you're starting in, it's been used as a, I guess, an incubator for a lot of organizations. Good Shepherd Catholic Radio is there. We've had daycares. We've had a number of things. It's not your long-term plan to build the high school, to be the high school at that location, is it?
Possibly. We'll see how the school kind of develops at that location and how that location is able to serve us. We anticipate being there for the first several years at the very least.
And once you get started with freshmen and sophomore, I would imagine you want to keep these students as they make their transition to juniors and seniors, right?
Yep. So we plan on the second year adding a junior class, and then the third year adding a senior class until we're at that 9 through 12 level.
Can you identify if somebody says, who is the Chesterton Academy for St. George? What is the typical student? Who is this for?
This is for any family that is looking for something different from education and is especially focused on forming who their child is. We don't focus on job training. We don't focus on getting ready for careers. We believe that if we form the student to be fully human, they'll be able to tackle any career that they go into.
So what happens after they graduate? With your other Chesterton Academies, do you track what they do after graduation, whether they go to college or what careers they go in?
Yep, absolutely. And they go into a wide variety of fields because they're very well prepared with the basic skills of writing, speaking, things that are going to be necessary in any career that they might choose. And they also are schools that produce a number of vocations for the local churches. The original Chesterton Academy in Minneapolis, 1 out of every 9 of their young men has gone into seminary after high school.
Wow.
So they are producing religious vocations, they're producing parents of large families. Their graduates go on and do anything, and they're very well prepared. There was one Chesterton Academy actually that their average ACT score last year was a 31. In the class, which is an incredibly high score for the ACT. So they are very well prepared for the real world through this classical formation.
So 10% of the boys in one Chesterton Academy went into seminary after high school.
Yep,
wow.
Exactly.
And what's do you have attrition? Is there kids start and think, ooh, maybe this isn't for me?
Absolutely. I mean, I think with any type of school, you're going to have that, right? You're going to have people who come in and it's just not a good fit. But we hope that their time there will still lead them to appreciate the good, the true, and the beautiful.
All right, classes start. You're going to have the same kind of schedule that the rest of the schools have?
Very similar, yeah. Classes will start August 22nd.
All right, and if you're interested, the open house is this Thursday,
Yep,
right?
Thursday night, 6:30 at Bethany House.
All right, just show up. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Bart.
You bet. Nice to meet you, Matt. The headmaster of the new Chesterton Academy St. George, Matthew Anderson.